Grok Talk.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for another 30 minutes of news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
Grok Talk.
Welcome to Grok Talk. We are back after taking an unintentional break last week. We did have material and content to post, which will be going up, but it wasn't officially Grok Talk. It was a great event that I wasn't at because my car broke down. But hey, we'll get to that in a minute. This week, Kathy Rago joins us. She's running for the New Hampshire State Senate in District 7 in New Hampshire. Ed Nail is here with us now. We'll be in and out depending on guests as we go. We're going to talk about voter fraud, some things that happened in New Boston, some things that happened with Bill Gardner, and what we might expect as a result of that. And, of course, Rick Olson said he might drop in and talk to us about whatever's going on at the Londonderry Fishing Game Club.
And we'll probably be giving Grokster Susan, who is over at the Manchester Gun Show, volunteering for the New Hampshire Women's Defense League.
What's our number here?
You're looking confused.
Yeah, what's our number here at
603-715-9689.
9689.
Yes.
Okay, just in case anybody wanted to call in.
Yep, and
Absolutely.
you could call in.
715-9689.
715-9689.
We have to keep Ed busy.
Yeah, we need a jingle, I guess, for the
Ed
fun of
Flasher.
Ed Larkin, yes.
Professor Ed the Flasher Larkin.
Yep. Only on Grok Talk do you get a professor who flashes people in a parking lot as the nickname of your phone flasher. So.
Yes, a nice bright strobe.
Yes.
So give us a call.
We're going to cover Sunday, what we did Sunday.
Sure, let's start with Sunday.
Saturday. We weren't here Saturday because we were doing an event Sunday, the constitutional event that Diane Gilbert runs mostly every year, but it's been idle for a couple of years. It's the Constitutional Studies.
National Heritage Center for Constitutional Studies. Yes, sir.
A long name with a very unfriendly acronym. But a very friendly group. They had 100 and some people there at the Grapponi Center right here in Concord. Good time. I got to speak for an hour and 15 minutes on voter fraud. That was fun. And then at 5, I was done at 2:15, and around 5 o'clock, Bill Gardner showed up, which was exciting to have the Secretary of State at our function after I spent an hour and 15 minutes making fun of him.
And I apologize because I didn't know the breakout sessions had started early. Otherwise, I would have just put the camera in there and gotten you, Ed, and I was just having all kinds of fun with the sound guy.
Yeah, the sound guy is his own entertainment committee in the corner. It's almost like a permanent distraction. As soon as you go, here's the sound guy. He is everywhere at once and in charge of his soundboard and most everything else. Very interesting character.
He was nice. He was trying to give us sound right from his board.
Yep.
And we had ungodly amount of trouble trying to do that. It was a bad
But once it was done, it sounded awesome.
Yeah, it did. It did.
Except for that one guy who kept walking away from the microphone.
Oh, the judge.
Yes.
Yeah, a judge from Michigan. I forget his name now,
Yes.
but he's some sort of judge in the state of Michigan. Federal judge?
Federal judge.
Federal judge, I believe.
I went up to him afterwards. I said, well, without the mic, you lost half your live stream audience. And he kind of looked at me like, what?
He got on a roll, and that happens sometimes when you're speaking before a group.
Yeah.
If you have a lot of information, you think, I'm never going to get all this out. You just go on a roll, and he had a lot of information.
Just didn't take the mic with him.
Yeah, I didn't take the mic with him. So we could hear him where we were sitting, so I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, it's going to sound kind of bad on the recording camera because the acoustics of the room were really, really bad. If you clapped your hands,
you could hear it.
It reverberated for like 5 seconds.
Most of those rooms have bad acoustics anyway.
That's why they make them like that, because people are going to meet there and speak.
Right.
Why wouldn't you have bad acoustics?
Why wouldn't you have bad acoustics?
I was videoed by a lovely young lady from Lawrence, Mass. Lucy, and I think her last name might be Lou. She came with another couple from Massachusetts, and they videotaped my whole spiel. And I believe they're in contact with you.
Not yet.
Not yet. I have their card. So Diane Gilbert had them come videotape.
Oh, yeah, we'd love to put
so
that
we'll
up.
get
Oh,
that
absolutely.
little tape.
Oh, that is
from
cool.
Have our own
Lucy.
little portable, recyclable, reusable Ed Nail voter fraud workshop.
And I got to sit with Rich Gerard, his son Dominic, and I believe Rich is going to post the workshop as well.
Yeah, cool. Very nice.
Because I've been going through our voter fraud workshop materials going back a long time, and they've been very consistent. I'm very, very happy with that. Everything we've done with definitions and statutes and now other states, it's all been pretty on target. So the only people that haven't caught on yet are Bill Gardner and the Attorney General's office, and a couple of judges down in Stratford County. But
now Bill has hinted.
He's hinted that
he's hinted that he's aware that he should have caught on.
Yeah. You know what happens when you stand on both the rails on the train tracks? Eventually, you're going to get hit by a train. So
That's right.
I always tell people when they see Bill Gardner, tell them get on board because the train is leaving the station. So, are we going to do a little voter fraud stuff?
Let's do some now. Yeah, let's do some while we wait for Kathy to show up.
Well, we had Bill Gardner had a revelation interview. I don't know if you call it an interview so much because it was a one-sided deal. This was in that paper that comes out of Manchester. I sat down with the editorial writer.
The Hippo?
Something like that. It was the Manchester paper.
The Union Hippo.
And
the Union Rhino? The Union Leader. That Manchester
Which one
paper.
was it?
It was Union
It was a
has-been.
Union Leader.
Okay.
So he sat down with him and gave an interview of, 25 paragraphs. And it looks as though the Secretary of State, Bill Gardner, is admitting that there's drive-by voting, or what I would like to call voter fraud in New Hampshire, and there's quite a bit of it. And that he had seen it himself, with specifically with AmeriCorps workers. So we know he's been to one polling place in the last, I don't know how many years. So people start sending me a copy of the interview, and I always think an interview is where a knowledgeable person or a person with questions asks the person who's being interviewed questions and they respond. So apparently Drew Klein didn't have any questions to ask the Secretary of State, or it was just a sit down and chat about voter fraud and how you're not really part of it and you don't like it either, and then shut the thing down interview. So that appears to be what it was. It leaves me with a lot of questions. So I'm thinking Bill Gardner mentioned that there was drive-by voting in the state of New Hampshire. He is the Secretary of State, and that comes under some purview of his office.
Can I interject here just for a second? If Drew Klein isn't asking the hard questions, and Dan Toohey, who is now doing John DeStazo's old column, sat on that Foley information for 2 weeks without revealing it, thus having Drew Klein endorse Jim Foley and then made him look like a fool.
Hand in glove down there at the UL.
Is there something in the water at the UL that they just don't want to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth anymore, or do they just not care?
I think it starts with bank and ends in Rupsy if they just continue like this, because there's hardly anybody buying the paper. You would think that if the Secretary of State says, yeah, we have voter fraud, that I would get more than 3 or 4 emails.
You think it would be at the top of the front page.
But
it
wasn't.
Bold
So
type.
That's like he's unlocking the door and opening it up. Why didn't Drew Klein slam it open?
Don't know.
If Bill Gardner came to us and said, hey, I've seen voter fraud, you can bet your ass we would have that on Breitbart. We would have it everywhere within like 24 hours.
Yeah, well,
everybody in the state, in the country would know that our Secretary of State says we have voter fraud, which, by the way, is something Ed's been talking about for over a decade.
For 15 years. And actually sometimes to Bill.
Sometimes to Bill.
So I went to his office.
Given him documents.
I went to his office
Papers.
Thursday to give him documents. Again, I quit giving documents to the AG and the Secretary of State in about 2006 when I figured out they are the enemy, they're not your friends. I stopped going there. Well, I went there Thursday and I gave Bill Gardner the, what do you call it?
Cross-check.
Cross-check. It's 16 pages of what I would call a PowerPoint presentation. So it's just about idiot-proof. And it shows you what the Interstate Voter Registration Cross-Check Program is. And it costs nothing to join, and there's 28, 29 states in it right now. So I gave it to him. He came out. He was on the phone when I got there. And he came out and said, here you go, Bill. This is a folder with the 16 pages and a brief description of how to get started. All you do is call the Secretary of State of Kansas, and he'll set it up with your IT people. So you take 2 of the people that you see in that office and say, when they're set up, send them our voter checklist, and they'll cross-check it against the other 28 states. Then you'll find the people that are double registered, double voting, things like that. So he looked kind of puzzled, kind of tentative, but he kept looking at it, looking page and page. I don't know what he was looking for.
An out.
Maybe an escape hatch. Like, will someone open the window so I can jump out? Then I said, this is, if I was going to look for voter fraud, this is what I would use. It doesn't cost anything. And all you do is sign up and they cross-check it for you, which we're trying to do privately at this point in time. Thank you very much. Catch you later. And I left. So he's got it in his hands. Bill Gardner, as the top election official in the state of New Hampshire, needs to do no more than to call the Secretary of State of Kansas.
And these Secretary of States, they got to talk. Really. They have meetings and clubs and stuff.
When they go to the family picnic, they must run into each other occasionally, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, there is we know at least the Democrats are doing it because the Democratic left was Soros sponsored, was doing the Secretary of State project, which was to get secretaries of state elected, because it isn't always who votes, it's who counts the votes.
Yeah, which we've learned here in New Hampshire.
And in Minnesota, a lot of people believe that Al Franken has U.S. Senator in front of his name because of that effort. Because if you remember, that was a long, dragged-out thing that went on for like 8 months before the senator race was finally declared.
And whatever
official.
ballots Al Franken needed would suddenly appear. If he needed another
trunk.
10, they would appear again. They would appear again. They would appear. It was a pretty sloppy vote.
You need your headset turned up?
Theft of an election.
You good? Okay.
So anyway, so I gave Bill Gardner the stuff, and next we're going to proceed to go through the rest of the interview, confession, whatever you want to call it, of Bill Gardner in the Manchester paper, and break it down bit by bit. The part where he says it's all the problem with the definition of domicile, that's exactly the opposite. If there was a problem with domicile, we could fix that. The problem for Bill Gardner and double voters, people from out of state, a Democrat Party, is that domicile is a real word. It's in our Constitution along with the word inhabitant. And they're both found in Black's Law Dictionary, which the New Hampshire State Supreme Court uses when they make decisions. I've actually read that. So the Supreme Court, when it does some sort of a decision regarding the meaning of a word, it says when we make a ruling like this, we go to the plain meaning of the word. And we use Black's Law Dictionary. So inhabitant means someone who's domiciled in a particular place, and domicile is your legal residence. So there's not a problem with that. If there was a problem with domicile, then Judge Lewis would not have had to invent a new word called mobile domicile, would he?
Mm-hmm. That's a compound word.
Yeah, that's a compound, yeah. So for a compound idiot, is no longer a Superior Court judge because he apparently said something demeaning about female lawyers, and that's always a smart thing to do, huh? So anyway,
resign?
He's gone. So he retired. He retired early. Yep. So another guy from the Attorney General's office is now Superior Court judge, making the same goofy rulings as Judge Lewis did. And I have his ruling here.
It's not dickhead, is it?
That would almost be funny. The state of New Hampshire.
Where's the laughter?
I'm sorry.
Rivers.
Wait.
Try it again.
It's not dickhead, is it? Yes, that's his name.
I don't know if I should
I
distance
think he
myself
likes to be
from
called
this
Richard Head.
Yeah.
Rick Head?
Yeah, Richard Head. Yes.
There's a guy in my town running for the House called Dick Bean. And I just can't, every time I go by that sign, I'm like,
we had
Dick
a congressman.
Bean. Yep. Dick Sweat.
Dick Sweat.
It has something to do with New Hampshire.
Yep.
If you're a dick, you show up here sooner or later.
You get into the bureaucracy or you run for office.
So anyway.
I don't dare say a word.
Anyway, I don't bother reading the decisions from those Superior Court judges because they make absolutely no sense. So what I've done is I've given Bill Gardner the beginning of a process of discovering who's voting in New Hampshire from out of state. Next, we'll work on definitions. I'll get him a copy.
But doesn't listen to a word you say.
That's the guy. I'll get him a copy of Black's Law Dictionary, domicile, and inhabitant. And if he sleeps on that for a couple of months, maybe
maybe you should get him the children's version with the pictures.
Yeah.
My question is,
how do I get it to rhyme? Domicile.
Domicile.
Imbecile.
Domicile.
Has anybody asked him about what you guys found out about one of these drive-by voters living in the home of a staffer in the NHAG's office?
We don't talk to him. If he wants to find out, which I imagine he's doing, he would have to look at some of the websites, Granite Grok, NH Insider, CNHT.org, or come on, Rich Gerard's show, Gerard at Large. I know that the Secretary of State's office listens to that program because we have evidence to prove that.
Well, you know, so, a day